Westuhal min freon and welcome to another video. It is quite amusing and telling when you look at one of the shill websites that are not really writing about anything negative because they are quite obviously being paid for positive reviews or anything, and you can't take these websites, such as Screen Rant, seriously. But it is interesting to see that even those people writing these articles are starting to see the truth, even though there are many mistakes and not truths in their articles. I shall point them out. But let us dive into the article, which is called "The Rings of Power's Immense Timeline Will Be the Show's Biggest Risk." Well, hello there, Sherlock. Thank you very much for letting us know something that we have known since, well, the first information about the stories came out. But let us dive in. Due to compressing the storyline, the Rings of Power may face problems with depicting events that occurred and result in lowered emotional stakes. Are there any emotional stakes in question when considering the Rings of Power? I think that the wisest people are indifferent about the show. I think that it's really not worth any attention, any emotions, and I only make these videos because somebody needs to point out the atrocities that Amazon is doing. But of course, the best solution to the problem is to, well, not to be subscribed to Amazon Prime or Prime Video, not to watch the show. And if you want to watch it, you have to sail the pirate seas, my dear friends, to show them that nobody's really interested in that. Because they are, of course, only going to disrespect Tolkien's legacy. And that is what we here at European Law are fighting for. So let us continue. While The Lord of the Rings of Power plans to avoid contradicting any of J.R.R. Tolkien's other stories, I think they are going to avoid having anything to do with Tolkien. Well, apart from the name, of course. The show's creators have already introduced several changes, like 150,000 of them, including compressing the storyline, which is, of course, my friends, one of my biggest gripes and problems about the show. It's not any diversity casting. We live in 2022. What did you expect? What did you expect, seriously? For Middle-earth to look like it should look like? Come on. Set to release on September the 2nd, 2022, The Rings of Power will explore Middle-earth's history before the Lord of the Rings trilogy takes place. In this way, The Rings of Power will serve as tragic prequel to the Lord of the Rings. And now that's the mistake. Adapting Tolkien's novel The Silmarillion. The Rings of Power is, of course, not adapting anything. Not even the Lord of the Rings or the appendices. They are making their own things. But they have specifically mentioned that they have not got the rights for adapting the Silmarillion. So they will be mentioning this a couple of more times in this article. Just keep in mind that Amazon Prime or Prime Video, Amazon, and doesn't matter, they don't have the rights to adapt the Silmarillion, the Unfinished Tales, any other texts by Tolkien, other than The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and the appendices to The Lord of the Rings. Posthumously published by Tolkien's son, The Silmarillion explains the entirety of Middle-earth's history, starting with the creation of the world and its supernatural beings. The Silmarillion then covers Middle-earth's 3 ages, which lead to the events in The Lord of the Rings during the 3rd age. That's a very simplistic description of the Silmarillion, but I suppose it'll do for the normies. The Lord of the Rings of Power will focus on the 2nd age, beginning soon after the defeat of the evil god Morgoth. After this, the Rings of Power will depict many major events that occur as evil returns to Middle-earth, including the creation of the Rings of Power, Sauron's rise to power, and the collapse of the kingdom of Numenor. Now, of course, if I was writing this article, I would avoid using one and the same word so close to each other within one sentence, but this is not a writing class. However, one issue the Rings of Power is facing is that the Silmarillion takes place over thousands of years. It does indeed. But so do the appendices to The Lord of the Rings, and they are, well, supposedly adapting those, not the Silmarillion, I'm repeating one more time, to shape the Second Age into a more cohesive story. I don't think there's going to be anything cohesive about the show. The Rings of Power will compress time and make major events occur closer together. While this should solve any problems with the Rings of Power's pacing and length, one article via The Gamer pointed out that compressing the storyline might cause other issues. Condensing the Silmarillion too much could lead to misrepresenting the evolution of events in Middle-earth's history and lessening the stakes in the characters' relationships. Now, that's a very good point that I was talking about at the beginning. Generally, compressing time may cause be a mistake for the Rings of Power because the series needs to depict events that took place over many years. For example, the fall of Numenor, a powerful island kingdom, occurred due to the pride of multiple generations of kings. To properly show how this prosperous kingdom slowly fell to ruin, the Rings of Power must depict many years of decline. In addition, compressing the timeline may also require changing many of the characters and their roles in the story. While some elven characters survived the entire Second Age, such as Galadriel and Elrond, the human characters could not live for thousands of years. If they did not die in battle, they would die of old age later, creating a cycle of humans were most important to the story. Based upon how much time the Rings of Power condenses, many of the human characters may be combined as well. Yes, unfortunately that is going to be true, but I also have to give a recommendation, provide a recommendation to websites such as Screen Rant. Hire a couple of editors or a couple of extra editors, my friends. If you want to pretend to be serious journalists, you have to construct your articles a bit more, well, in a bit more cohesive way. More specifically, the Rings of Power may have difficulties because some characters' stories are directly affected by the passage of time. For example, now we are talking about Amazon's originals, as I call them, because those characters never appeared in any of Tolkien's books. For example, and I'm not going to pronounce these names like they were invented by Tolkien, such as, I said Galadriel or Elrond or Celebrimbor. No, it was invented by Amazon. That's why I'm going to say Arondir, an elf, and Bronwyn, a human, fell in love during the Second Age. Did they? I've never heard of them. I've never read of them in any of Tolkien's books, and I have been reading Tolkien since I was 8. Since elves are immortal, a relationship between a human and an elf in Middle-earth usually required the elf to give up his or her immortality. Oh, do we only have two genders? Come on, you bigots. The most well-known example of this was the love between Arwen and Aragorn in The Lord of the Rings. And Beren and Luthien, of course. However, if the Rings of Power compresses time enough that the story fits within Bronwyn's lifespan, there will be less motivation for Arondir to give up his immortality, lessening the stakes in their relationship. Although compressing the storyline should make The Lord of the Rings of Power more cohesive with a faster pace, the series will face other issues, such as depicting events that occurred across generations and diminished emotional stakes. Now, one more gripe I've got with this article is they are acting as if Amazon was going to adapt some actual stories written by Tolkien and compressing them as if they weren't making their own things from about 90%. So yes, that remaining 10% might be extremely compressed stories written by Tolkien, extremely changed. Now, this picture is an abomination. But yeah, all in all, I have to say that finally some shill site, someone else than a normal site such as Bounding Into Comics or Bleeding Fool, they are pointing out something relevant and something that is the problem here. It's not the diverse cast. It's not that elves don't have long hair. I mean, no. These are not the real problems with this show. All right, let me know in the comments down below what you think, my friends. And that will be all. Thank you very much for watching. And I'm out of here.